really happening, and I was trying, and I was trying.
Could you speak more loudly, because...
Yeah, first I felt like nothing was happening, and I kept trying, and then I was getting upset because I was like, I heard somebody over there, and I'm like, Pastor said to be quiet, right? And we just started, and so I felt like that was going on, and then I started to bring stuff. Well, I knew I had to put my whole self on it. Like I couldn't just put my toe in the brazen altar and everything. So I was still wondering like what was going on, and then finally, I thought I kind of like confessed everything, and then I still felt like going forward anyway, like to labor, and then I was like, I still don't feel it. So then, finally, almost towards the end, the Lord, I wanted to be in control.
Right. That's always a biggie.
My God. And then when I said I want to be in control, I'm getting so upset because I want to be in control. Then that's when it grows.
Okay. That is always a biggie. There's sometimes I'll go through the praying about what part of me thinks it's supposed to be in control and thinks it has the right to decide it's not going to listen to God. Getting in touch with that part of the carnal nature. So yeah, there's always a control issue, because that's what you're doing is you're giving control to God. And the carnal nature doesn't want you to give control to God because it wants to be in control. That's always a factor. Okay, but once then you did that, then it broke. And then you felt peaceful and able to fellowship with God. One of the things that I didn't bring up before is when it does break, there's that portion where you could feel the fellowship with God and you could just kind of rejoice in it. You just spend some time just being in fellowship.
Yeah, I felt that, but before that, like I was trying to go on.
No, you don't want to push it.
No, I was trying to go on and it wasn't broken yet.
You don't go on until it's broken.
But that's because I wanted
One of the rules I'll write down: don't go on till it's broken. Because if you do, it's not going to work. It's like your sacrifice hasn't been accepted, and you're going to bust on into His presence anyhow. That's not the best idea. But thank you for sharing with that. Anybody else? Yes, Brother Leon.
It's very good because same thing. We see the control. Same thing was working with me too because of something like control of.
In your prayer tonight, how did that? What you're explaining to me. How did that, you're praying, you're going to present yourself before God, then you were feeling the control issues.
Yeah.
You're having trouble giving up control.
Exactly.
That was your offering then, in a sense.
Because I'm not in control.
Okay. So when you're presenting that, say, I want to be in control, this has got to die.
Right.
That right? That's kind of generally what you were doing? Right. You're seeing that this strong urge and desire to be in control was blocking you from moving ahead, right? All right, so you're offering to God and you're saying, well, this is God. Then what you're doing at that point is saying, well, I need you to kill this, right? That was what was going on?
Yeah, my control issue.
And then what happened as you were doing that?
He was showing me everything in my life. He's showing me how it's been breaking me because I'm not in control. Like in my life, doing my job.
So he started revealing to you about that principle,
like
showing you the negative effects in your life from it.
My health is all jacked up, and I have a job, and I have a car. So it's just showing me, just put me in place, you know. You're here because you're trying to be in control.
Okay.
I'm not in control.
So he was, right. That's another one he shows us, that we're not really in control as much as we think.
Right. Because I can't talk like I want to talk.
All right, so this is one of the things that as you're going to God, He says He'll talk to you at the door of the tabernacle. When you present there. So many times when the issue's up, you're bringing it there, He starts talking to you about the control trip, explaining it to you.
Right.
This is part of the process, okay? And it helps you to repent of it then, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise, because He's showing you, and you're seeing, and then you're also seeing, well, this is between me and God, this desire for me to be in control. This is something that is actually between me and God.
And it makes you feel like I got to get back in you again. I got to be connected, stay in your presence. Got to dwell there.
Well, that's what we
Exactly.
that's our goal.
Yeah.
All right, so he showed you that. Did you get any breaking of it, or just it broke and then you
Yes.
got instructions?
I got a nice breaking in it.
Okay, so you felt like
Emotional release.
fellowship with God
Yes,
and
yes.
emotional
Yes,
release,
the connection.
and then he was explaining to you about
Yes.
your controlling nature,
It
which
was
we
like
all
healing.
have.
It was like healing, you know?
Okay, very good.
Helpful,
You
yes.
felt the healing.
Yes.
Cindy,
Okay, my whole half an hour was a battle. It's like a tug of war of trying to let go of my cardinal self and and get into his presence. And it was just a constant battle.
right.
But hearing Brother Leon talk and everything, it just came to my mind that God said, "Be still and know that I'm God." And that's
Yeah, well, sometimes it's not so easy to be still.
And
So what,
he knows
when
that.
you're in that battle, let's say when you're praying and you're in that battle, then you're praying, Lord, I see this. I see it is a big term because he likes that. He's been waiting for us to see it forever. So you see, I see how strong my carnal nature is. I see how it doesn't want to yield. Those are the things that you're bringing to God and say, if you don't kill this, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, because what happens to me is that my mind constantly races. I mean,
Yes.
I'm here and then I'm here and
Right.
here at the same time I'm here. So that's the problem I have, and that's what I have prayed for. To let me be still.
Right.
Let me hear you. And to give him complete control of my life.
Well, that is a beautiful sentiment,
Yeah.
and that's where we want to get.
Yes.
But what I suggest is, Lord, I see, sister, I can't even control my own mind.
Yeah.
I think I want to be in control, and I can't even control my own mind, which is a contradiction of terms. And so you're holding that up and saying, Lord, you have to take control. You have to break this, and you keep that tension of, Lord, you died for this, and just until he does it. Don't give up, because your desire will produce the results. He knows the desires of our heart. So, but he also has to show us the forces arrayed against us. So we start to look at the flesh as our enemy rather than as our buddy
Yeah.
that needs to be placated. Very good. Thank you for sharing that. Whatever happened, your sharing it helps the process. If you got nowhere, it helps the process, because we can discuss, okay, what was going on, why didn't this happen, what did happen. If you hit a block, it doesn't matter in some ways what happened. It just matters if you share it so that we can address it and give some pointers to it. Right? Okay. We're going to get people to have it talk first. Okay, go ahead.
Well, one of the things that I guess the Lord's been dealing with me about in this process has been what you were talking about earlier, like that thing that distracts you, the thing that's like jumping up and down in front of your face, or the thing that's trying to keep you out of, the presence of God, the thing that's trying to grab your attention is usually the thing that you're supposed to put.
Yes. Okay. So the thing that's trying to grab your attention and keep you out of the presence of God, that's the carnal nature, or your mind under control of the carnal nature. Right? Okay.
So usually,
I'm repeating this for the camera. If they don't hear you, that's all.
usually that I'll like try to like push back that thing and be like, Lord, I'm focusing on you. But then I started realizing, and something we discussed in youth Bible studies, like you just take that thing, and that's the thing that you put on the altar. That's the
Right.
thing that you bring, and it's worked so much better than like just trying to like muddle through and push past everything. So I find that helps me zero in a lot quicker on just putting the carnal nature, like, Lord, this is the thing that's bothering me right now. And then after that, it's like so much easier to just kill it,
Yeah.
because that thing is the thing that's distracting me.
Okay.
And I didn't really notice it before, so it was a lot, and it's been a lot easier to just kind of enter the presence of God and just get rid of the flesh, like,
Okay.
drop it off kill it, wait for the fire, and move on. you
Okay,
know?
if I may rephrase, when you come to pray, things that are blocking between you and God come up. Those are the things that you're recognizing are the forces of the carnal nature working in your life, right? So that's I think I said before. You don't try to think ahead. Well, I'm going to come with this. When you come to pray, a lot of times it will come up what's in between you and God. If and as I said, what Cindy brought up, one of the common things is the person's mind running. They can't get their mind to shut up. But that's the shift from the intellect part of your mind into the faith part of your mind. There's a shift that has to occur. So sometimes we have to pray, God, if you don't do this, it won't get done. Because it is actually a true prayer, isn't it? Because you can't do it. You can't even control your own mind, you find out. And then you think, well, why does my carnal nature want to be so much in control, and I think I'm in control when I can't even control my own mind?
Come on.
It starts to show you where you really are, right? And then by bringing it to God, you're saying, I see. He can break that and start to help you to break the power of that intellect. As I've often said, when you pray, the focus is to get into the presence, to break your intellect, get into the presence of God so He can instruct you and show you things, and then you don't have to figure it out. You just have to ask Him and He can tell you. It makes it so much easier. But if we're so reliant on our intellect, and my intellect's kind of like my God, and everything that God says has to go through my intellect to be approved or disapproved, then many times I don't even understand that I need to have that broken. Sister, yes, please. Jocelyn.
That's kind of where I get hung up, is because I think that sometimes I'm so focused on the process that I'm like, okay, Lord, I just gave you my emotions for today. Now what? And I just feel like in my own mind, I'm like, okay, so I'm at the altar. All right, I'm still at the altar. All right, Lord. I'm still here, just and so I think I just get focused so much on the actual pieces, and where I know that I feel like I used to be able to experience it kind of in a more in an uninterrupted flow, but I find myself now just focusing on
All right, yeah, you
steps
don't
and
remember
pieces.
He opened up a new and living way.
Mhm.
It's supposed to be alive. It's supposed to be not just you're going through this road. So sometimes I find myself, I have to kind of focus on, Lord, I need you to become alive. I know He's alive,
Right.
but I have to have Him alive in this. I want Him to start interacting with me.
Mhm.
And so once that the thing is broken, that's like tonight. I watch a lot. I think it's because part of my job is to explain it, but part of it is once that's broken, then there's that fellowship part where I can feel the fellowship, and He becomes alive, and there's this feeling of fellowship. And I like to just hang out with that for a while. In imagery, it's maybe just hanging onto His feet or something, or just hanging onto Him, I call it the hugs. But it's a lot of embrace by God for the Spirit. And this is kind of headed, just one second, and this is heading towards the laver. So there's a general direction He gives you where, the power breaks, then you're doing some fellowship, then you're heading towards the laver. Yes, you finished what you said. I've got you, Leslie.
Is it always? I know with my own self that I'm a very emotional. I can feel my way through spiritual things, and so I don't. Is it always visual, or because that's what really trips me up, is having to visualize these things. And I found it that the Lord, I can actually feel my way through it.
That's fine. The visualization is a guide.
Mhm.
Feelings is a guide. It's still the same place. If you were blind and you could still feel your way through something, it's still the same place. But so on some level, we're saying a general thing, but it can vary. Yes, Leslie.
Yeah, actually, as you kept talking, you answered my question. I was going to ask, you said that there's this, you get this sense of kind of hanging out with God.
Right.
And I was going to ask, where in the process is that? Because I think I expected to wrestle a lot tonight, and it wasn't like that at all. Kind of just felt like I threw myself on the altar
Right.
and all my issues. And there was a moment of peace, but it felt weird because I felt like there was
should be something else.
more, there should be more.
When he decides it's time for the fellowship, it's time. He can do that at any point in the process. But usually it's after the sacrifice is accepted, and sometimes it's like that. Other times it takes longer. But sometimes you're just right there really quick. And that's a point of, okay, now one of the purposes of the burnt offering is fellowship. So you might as well enjoy the fellowship, and that's part of it, that fellowship. Even the laver is part of that, the cleansing, the washing, that's all kind of part of that whole thing. So yeah, you want to enjoy that part. And you don't want to rush through, enough fellowship, on we go. You can sense, okay, it's time to go on. You don't always have to finish everything, because sometimes he wants you to stay in a certain place and just talk to you about something, share something with you, explain something to you, right? So it's not like this, you don't want to, it's a living thing. That's what's important to understand. You want it to become a living thing. In many ways, you imagine it from the outside, and at a certain point, you're inside. You're in the imagery, right? So the goal is the fellowship. I mean, that's the goal. So once you hit that, it's not like, oh, what else is there? No, that's very important, because the rest of it is developing that intimacy. Elizabeth.
Okay, so for me tonight, I did struggle a lot, and I was distracted, what's going on with this person, then, so finally I was able to just get in my mind's eye, as you say. And it was something that we discussed yesterday in Youth Bible Study that Nisha just said, as far as those distractions, instead of like trying to push past a distraction, actually bringing those distractions or bringing what's upsetting you to the Lord. And I found myself doing that more tonight than I have been, kind of emotions that I've just been kind of like, oh, the Lord sees that, but let me just break my carnal nature, when it's like, no, but you being angry and you being frustrated and you not understanding things, these are the things that I keep.
That is your carnal nature, yeah.
This is my carnal, exactly. And so I was mostly talking to the Lord really today. It wasn't really like a whole, Lord, thank you for the cross. It's like, I know these things, but
right.
There are other things that are more pressing, like I'm upset and I'm angry. And so it was a lot of that today. And then finally, I felt like I got it out, and then I'm like, but why isn't the fire coming? And so I just waited. I didn't say anything. I just waited, and the Lord started talking to me, started ministering to me. And it's almost like I kind of felt him come out and meet me where I was at the laver. I mean, at the altar.
Okay.
And he was just kind of like, there are lies there. He's like, and so I was like, oh, there's lies. And so it was almost like when he had to speak to me pretty much, because I was like going around in circles during the whole thing. And so once he spoke to me, that's when the fire finally came into.
Okay. And there's always a connection. We get to a certain point, you should expect him to start communicating. And I use that word communicating because sometimes when people say speak, they think it's got to be some audio voice from over here. It just has to be communication. It's the control trip. I'm worried about what, I had it, you're in control, I'm not in control. And giving that up. And I felt like during the group prayer, I felt a good peace come down on the whole place, right? Most people probably felt that. So it was working, but there's always those, you recognize, the same thing, I recognize, this is, this control, I'm still trying to somehow or another make it happen or something, some crazy thing.
The lie was that, finally, like I admitted it, I guess he had to show me that it was there. The lie was that this doesn't work.
Right.
Like this process, this is jumbo. It's like I've prayed this way plenty of times. I know it works, but that lie was there.
Okay.
So when I was when he showed it to me and I gave it to him, that's when it broke. So the fact, I think that was the biggest thing, I think, for me, was that this doesn't work.
Okay,
That was in there. So.
all right. Okay. Yeah, all right, anybody else? Sister Schlicht. Talk loudly, please, so at least there's some on the video.
So I was in here, to the bathroom when you say be quiet. So when I went down to pray, I was like, why is everybody so quiet? Right? So for a moment, my brain was like listening. And was like, why is everybody? But after a while, I settled down and started, to pray. And then that all went away. And I have actually, before praying this way, I used to get on my knees and pray. And then my mind is all over the place. But praying this way, I keep my mind under control. And I feel like it's break whatever I bring before the Lord, broken real easily, and I can, get into His presence. That's all.
Okay, good, so you had some results. Okay, good, good. That's what we're looking for, is results. As I said, it's some days it's better than others, some days you're faster than others, some days you get further than other days. It's very seldom the same. Some days you can't get too far, some days it's, but if you stick at it, you usually get through. And a lot of times we don't have the time to stick at it. I mean, I gotta fix, we gotta go to work, we have all this time. We don't always have, I find for me, if I get down to pray and I have 3 hours and nothing's coming up, it's a lot easier than I've got 45 minutes. So I like to, I'm in a position where I can do that more, I guess. So I like to be able to pray when I don't have a time limit on me. It just works better for me. Yes, Sister Maureen?
Is the silence a preference for people?
Is what?
Is the silence a preference?
If you're alone, you can do anything you want. But when we're praying this together, it distracts other people if there's too much, especially if it's in English. If it's in tongues, it doesn't bother, but in English, it's hard not to, to hear what the other person's saying. If it's in tongues, it's just it becomes background noise. But if you're by yourself, you can do it any way you want. But since we're together here, we're trying to get it in a way that works for everybody.
Well, I guess you can't come when you sleep because that just puts me to sleep.
Huh?
I like being out sleep. I'm gonna be honest with you.
You were what?
Sleep. I guess you cannot do this when you're tired because
You have to get in a in between state where you can fall asleep getting there. Yes, I've had that happen. Because your brain has to shift into another gear. You see?
well, if you're already tired, I don't think that helps.
No, it doesn't.
No.
I agree, Sister Leslie.
I do feel like if I was alone, I would have been a lot more vocal, even in just like my
Okay.
adoration.
If you were alone, you would have been a lot more vocal, right? But as we said, when we're doing it together, speaking in tongues is okay. But as I said, you don't have to go, top volume. But English can really distract folks because it's hard not to listen to English. If they're talking in tongues, it becomes background noise. And it's sometimes very nice background noise.
But for me, it is hard to pray silent. Like, I will be honest and say I don't know how to pray silent. Like, I find if I try to pray silent, and this just sounds funny
My
saying,
brain wanders.
but like, I'm like, in it's the same cycle. Oh, thank you, Lord Jesus. You are so wonderful. Amen. Thank you, Jesus. Again, like, I have to get it out. Because
So for what I'm hearing then is the next time we do this, we'll say, okay, if you want to verbalize, but verbalize in tongues. Is that okay?
Yeah,
That sounds all right to everybody? Okay. Pastor Dotton.
First of all, praise the Lord. And,
Praise the Lord.
sorry for being late. I was just glad for the opportunity to come in from where I came from and be able to get out my knees and pray. So just having the opportunity to come into God's house and pray before Him and get before Him was a huge benefit. Yes, the tiredness kicked in, but it was okay because it was a time of acknowledging His holiness in the very beginning, that brought in itself a wave of purity and a wave of just awe and humility, just being there, thanking Him for who He is and giving Him glory for who He is. Again, in transition, you know, and of course the process, what we talked about, continues. But I want to say this too, just to help some folks. If you have an anointing to be an intercessor and you have some things in you, you're able to flow. Like Pastor said, like we were saying, it's not all one, it's not locked in one way, and you have to allow God to shift you and to move you along, and not become so caught up in the well, but it's not, get caught in the technique, but just where you're so focused on what's happening, you can observe and let God teach you.
Right.
But don't lock Him out from moving you along spiritually. Let Him teach you. Teach me, Lord. Show me. And through that, He'll teach you.
Yes, and I agree with that. This is part of it. Once, it's like if we do the inner healing, we pray and we get a person in a place where they need the healing. We pray for the Lord's presence to come into that place. And I'll say, can you perceive the Lord there? And they'll say, if they say yes, I say, is he communicating with you? If they say yes, I say, let me know when He's done. All right? Because the whole goal is to get there. Generally, the place that you make your prayers is at the altar of incense. And I'll just finish up with a quote from a famous painter. His name is skipping my head right now. It starts with a P, Picasso. He draws all these weirdo things, right? And I don't like his stuff. But I went to the Museum of Modern History, and he had paintings before he got into that. And he was a really good painter. I mean, this guy could rock it out. And one of his quotes was, you have to learn all the rules before you know how to break them. And that's what we're doing here. We're just trying to teach how this prayer operates, how it works, how to go through it. Learn that. You do what you want with it. But learn how to do it. And then it doesn't mean you can't have God show you other things or lead you other places or deal with you in other ways. But partly is to learn the rules before you start to break them. Because I see that a lot with people with photography. They start and they're not that good, and then they try to get all those special effects and everything to kind of cover it all up. And you know what they're doing. They're just not that good, and they're trying to do something, right? So it's the same thing. First, before you can even start doing that stuff, you have to be good enough to make a good picture. Then you can monkey with it. You have to know the rules first. So that's what we're doing here. Learn how to get into the presence of God. Learn how to bring a burnt offering. Learn how to go through the process. And then God's a teacher. Once you get in there, He starts teaching all kinds of stuff.
So, Pastor, it's better to say, just me taking the words, learn His pattern.
Yes. Okay.
Because it's His structure, it's His model.
His structure, His model.
So learn His pattern, allow Him to teach you His pattern, so we can flow and be more in alignment with Him.
That's right. You can flow within the pattern.
Right.
Exactly. That's what He'll do. Because what we're teaching, Brother Rudy had asked me before, are we going to look at something about the encampment? I said, I really don't know if we are or not. There's so much to this that all we're really doing is just a bare kind of outline and saying, okay, this will work. You do it this way, it'll work. This should be happening. Once we understand that, there is so much more to this. So we're not saying this is all there is. This is like 101. Right? All right. So that's it. Brother Rudy.
Last week I said something because I thought this would be true. I just think a prayer time is our time. Answering prayer is God's time.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think that just because you pray now, you're going to get an answer. I don't think that's how it works. What I'm saying about, the reason why I'm saying this is because there's so many fundamental concepts to understand the tabernacle before you get to that gate and get to that altar. You'll never leave the altar. So yeah, you have piece by piece you go when you get into the tabernacle, but you'll never leave the altar. And how we know this is in today, with our today's concept in the New Testament plan of salvation, Paul said, I die daily. He was at the altar every day.
Right.
So
it's a daily thing.
You don't leave the altar. You got to stay there. It's kind of like, that's what I saw in prayer today. What this altar means, what it means to my life as a Christian, what it means as my life as a man of God, what it meant, what it took for me to be able to get into the tabernacle.
Right.
What it meant for me to be at this altar. So, when I was seeing that, I was saying, well, there's so much of me that has to be laid down at this altar.
I follow you.
You kind of see, I mean, there's just so much of me that has to be laid at the altar. God say, listen, before you kind of not really understand what you're doing, let me show you something about this.
But that's exactly what he's supposed to be doing. He speaks to you at the door of the tabernacle. So you get there. Believe me, when I started learning this, I spent like a month or two at the altar with instructions about the cross. What he's doing, he starts to explain the whole process, explain the significance of it, tell you, and then when you first begin, it's, oh Lord, there's so much.
You're almost afraid to, I don't want to say fear, but it's almost like, well, I've been doing some things correct. Let me back up a little bit.
But that's what's
read the instruction. When all else fails, continue to read the instructions.
Right, but that's what he's doing. He's giving you the instructions, and that's what it says, that he'll speak to you at the door of the tabernacle. So I often say, if he's not speaking to you, it's questionable if you're at the door. And one of the ways he speaks is he starts explaining the process and explaining the altar and the cross and how important it was and how necessary. He starts to show you, and that's great. You see, that's what you want. You want the instructions. That's what I'm saying. When he tells you, it's a lot easier than studying the Bible and trying to figure it out, right? He's telling you and he's showing you. And then it's like, oh, and then you go back to the Bible and then, oh yeah, you see, it's a reverse. So that was good. You were doing good. You were right there. You were hearing. Okay, somebody else had their hand.
I just wanted to say.
No.
It's funny. I heard like you never leave, but what I would just fix it this way. You're always encountering. In other words, if I come through that entrance of the back door to come into the church, I'm going to always go through the hallway. So the part of I've got to always encounter the altar and let God deal with me there. And I'm not going to have church by the bathrooms for the service, because y'all going to think I'm weird. But I'm going to journey through there. And sometimes hang out there. Sometimes have some of our greatest conversations actually take place right there. If you've been here for a while. But that's not our destination. That's a part of the process coming into this.
That is very true. But what I'm hearing Rudy say is what he was getting is the magnitude of the altar and how much there was to it and how much, you see, so that was what the Lord was showing him. And that's good because, I've gone through that. Many of us have gone through the same thing. But you're also saying the same thing. Okay, the sacrifice is daily, but then once it's accepted, all right, you work through that, then you're on to the next step. But it's a daily thing. Every day you're bringing yourself, you're taking up your cross daily.
That's because, when Paul said, he was paraphrasing, he said, he felt that he had fought the good fight. He felt,
Right.
okay, at this point in his life, he felt accepted by what he had offered to the Lord in his life. You see, so before I just jump up here on this altar, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just want to be, you know, I want to be right and understand what it truly means to me in the fullness of justification. What this means.
Well, you keep on going, and you keep on letting them explain it to you. That's how it works. Yes, Sister Maureen.
I just want to say thank you to Pastor Gottman and to Brother Rudy and to the saints, because Pastor is an excellent teacher, always has been. Sometimes, you know, he goes over my head, just a little bit, because everybody's a different type of learner, and some of us need different types of instruction, and we have to always be mindful of that. We all only have one common denominator, which is the Holy Ghost, which, thank God, but everybody learns differently. So I thank God for the body that is here, because you help more than you know. When you have a comment, you know what I mean, even if it's a question, and then it gets explained, it really helps.
Right. Well, that's why I'm encouraging us to do it this way, so people can bring up their perspective, what they're experiencing, how they're seeing it, so we can do that. That's why I'm really bringing up, this is a group thing, that by sharing, even if you had a dismal failure for the night, sharing it could help somebody. You see? Okay, Diane, you raised your hand. You're the last one.
I did have a personal issue that did come up. And
A question?
No, in the prayer. In the prayer, the Lord brought up something from my past, but the way he dealt with it was like he just spoke on it. It wasn't like I needed like an inner healing. He just spoke on it.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was like, it was about my little sister. I was always like jealous of her because she was more innocent to me, and they really, you know, took a lot of care with her. And so it has followed me in my life. So the Lord went before he just spoke. He said, well, when you're at the labor, you're just as clean. And then that was it.
Well, you know what? That is inner healing. He can do it any way he wants. There's no set structure for that. All right, so I really appreciate your feedback tonight and participating. I hope we'll continue, because we want to get this as a prototype that we can hand on to others. And as you can see, some of the questions help us to clarify things in a way that help other people understand better. All right? So at this point,